Firefighters know that every second counts during the golden hour. That is why first responders trust AMKUS for simple, rugged, reliable rescue tools.
Hey, I want to welcome everybody in. A little bit different this month on our pod video cast thing. Me and the guests are actually together this week in the same room on the same computer in a kind of a tight quarter thing. So it'll be a little bit different than normal. So again, thank you for downloading or listening or however everybody's doing it. And we're super excited to have our guest with us this week. Obviously, can't really hide him. It's Chief Clyde Gordon, Houston Fire. He'll tell everybody a little bit more about himself in a few minutes. Anthony, if you can go ahead and introduce yourself real quick, my friend.
Anthony Rowett, a captain with Mobile, Alabama, volunteered in northern New Jersey before that. Get to travel around with these two a lot, so just lucky to get to do that.
Todd Edwards, 40. I did the math today, so I'm not going to give you the real number. 40 plus years in the fire service. Retired out of Atlanta, and now I'm doing kind of the same thing. Very fortunate, very blessed to be able to hang out with guys like Chief Gordon and Anthony all over the country, and kind of looking forward to a little bit different of a subject matter this week. Typically, we do a lot of focus, obviously, on training. We do a lot of focus on strategy, tactics, and, a whole host of other things. This week, we're going down a little bit different path. If you've never heard Chief Gordon speak before, this will kind of give you, to me, a better idea of what not the chief officer is about, but what the person's really about. And that's why I kind of chose this subject matter for this particular month. And we're really going to just be talking about how we make a difference, and not just a difference in our family lives, but a difference in our personnel's lives and the community's lives, and what our legacy truly is. And it's a very unique, and it's I'm super excited that we're going to hear this directly from Chief Gordon. He has a very unique story himself. But right now, I guess I'll just, you need to introduce yourself. So I just don't start, because I'll just get going.
Clyde Gordon, just recently retired in October from the city of Houston after 35 years. Started as a 16-year-old kid in a small country town as a volunteer. Still volunteer today in my hometown. So been doing this somewhere around 40 years, if you count it all. So retired as a battalion chief downtown, and now I'm making that adjustment, training with these guys and traveling over the last 5 years.
Awesome. And again, I know a lot of people that will be listening to this over the course of the next month or so have been fortunate to maybe see a class of Chief Gordon's been a part of, whether it's the hands-on or the lecture series. So I think today you'll get even a little bit different perspective, obviously, than maybe some other things, and a little more some more personal touches with that. One of the things that I think that's important when we start talking about people's legacies or how we make a difference. And one of the things that took me a long time to really understand is that our impacts aren't always the big, glorious 5-alarm fires. Most of our impacts are the small routine type of calls, or that small, what we think is just a routine encounter with an individual. But it ends up being life-changing for that individual. And that's what I'm excited about sharing today. So I'm just going to kind of throw out one thing. I'm going to have Captain Rowett answer this first. In all your interactions, and just say with department-wise, what do you think your impact, or what difference do you think you've made just, as your time? I know you haven't been, an officer for 25 years or anything like that, but the impact you've already seen, or you think you've had already within your own organization, whether it's from training or just, getting guys to quit your department, and then they come back after they beg to come back on the job, Rico. And so
there's only one,
but those kind of things. So go ahead. Let me hear what you have to say.
I think the biggest impact is just a mindset of consistency, of coming in, and it's going to be, you're going to train every day, try to get better at something. Doesn't mean you got to train for hours and hours every day, but you're going to do something every day to improve, to learn something. And then also just to have the mentality that was taught to me, because I got to work under the really senior guys, and that they didn't really take to changing to a PC culture or anything like that. It was all about the job and what we did when the bell rang, and everything else kind of didn't matter. And just to kind of keep that mentality going and see the younger guys come in, and that's what they want, is they want to be taught the way the old guys used to do it. They want to be treated the way the old guys used to get treated, and they don't want to have it an easier way. They want to do what everyone else did. And I think that's the biggest impact, because as they promote, they're going to carry on the same thing, which keeps our traditions going.
I love that. And I think those are those moments, and I kind of refer to them as legacy moments, because once you're long gone, those guys are going to take that next 21-year-old kid and bring him up in the way you've been bringing up person. I think that's just a huge impact that we have and a difference that we make. And a lot of times we don't always get a chance to see those differences. Very good friend of mine, had him as a recruit when he was in the academy. I had him in my battalion as a battalion chief, as a young firefighter, and he just made captain this past week. So again, those little moments are more meaningful to me than any other thing I've ever done in the fire service, to see guys that I got to work with directly, and now they're lieutenants, captains, a couple of them are battalion chiefs. So that's a huge impact. And I want to kind of open that up again on the job stuff, Chief Gordon, kind of where, now that you've had a short period of time to kind of step back from the job, what you kind of see as your legacy that will linger on for years and years and years.
I think, it takes time to kind of build your culture and how you deal with employees and other firefighters and all those things. But I used to get real upset after I spent years to create a crew that I thought was better than anyone in the city. And then half of them would get promoted or whatever. It seemed like as soon as I got it perfect, it fell apart and everybody left to better themselves. But for me, I was selfishly thinking, oh, now I got to start over. And it used to bother me. But now, years into it, I realized that to me, it's like that little thing we had as a kid, the little fluffy thing, and you plucked it as a weed, and you blew, and seeds went everywhere, right? Dandelion or whatever the heck that thing was, right? And I started thinking about these guys and gals like those little floaties that were going everywhere. If I could put my time and effort into them and create the firefighter that I wanted to be, or that I wanted responding with me or to me, then when they did promote or left for whatever reason, to me, I was spreading a culture. So that made it a little easier for me. And I just poured into them knowing that there was a time where they would leave and improve other places. They were taking our culture and spreading it, just like those little floaty seeds. One of the things as I left that I realized and that I was going to miss more than anything was to watch the guys work and to be so successful and so well trained. Like I took, almost like a dad, I took pride in my kids excelling and doing well. And it was a combined effort. We all worked to get them to that point, but so much of it was on their initiative. And it just, there's a ton of pride and happiness in watching your people succeed.
Man, I love the way the description of the dandelion was definitely different. I wish I may have to clip that and just put that in a class one day.
Whatever that thing is, we've all done it.
But I think, and for the people just now, or as you're watching this and you're wondering why in the hell people keep walking behind me and Chief Gordon, and there was a loud bang a few minutes ago. We were actually in a restaurant at a Marriott in Carolina Beach. We're both teaching down here this week. So there may be a few little background noises as we go through. I think one of the things that kind of piggybacking on both those as we're moving forward here is something that, and again, personal recommendation here, who you surround yourself with is going to be critical to the differences you make. Because if you're surrounding yourself with, dirtbags, guys who don't have really strong reps, it's hard to have impact on others as well. Because no matter how much different or how much you're not that guy, people are still going to look at you as that person at the same time. And it's one of the things that I probably have spent more time the last couple of years really looking at who I'm spending my time with and who I work with and who I associate myself with, more so now than I ever did in the past. And I did that on the job, but in my, personal life and my professional life, I take a lot of consideration into that now before I say yes to certain things or yes to certain people, just for that reason, because I want my impact to be a positive and not, he hangs out with that guy. And just conversations I've been having this whole week down here, kind of picking up that vibe that I'm on the right track by doing so. Give me, and I'll start with Chief Gordon this time. Tell me one thing, Chief, that if you were to change anything on the way you influence people, now that you've had that step back time, that time as a VC, but especially as a younger officer, which a lot of guys listen will be younger officers or future officers, what is something that you would definitely recommend either to do or, not to do when you're trying to influence these young guys and make them better?
Okay. So kind of a two-part, right? Because I like what you said about who you're hanging out with and who you surround yourself with. And we do that in our personal life and we do that at our work, right? But I just want to make mention, one, my dad used to say you can't soar with eagles if you hang out with turkeys all night long, right? And I never knew what that meant when I was 18, but now I do. And the firehouse and your personal life's kind of the same. But I was always, I'm going to say blessed now. I didn't always think it was that way. My crew was, what do they say, a controlled shipwreck, or again, I'm going to go back to when I was a kid, right? The Island of Misfits toys, the little Christmas show with Charlie in the box and the train with the square wheels, right? I had good guys, but I also always have had that one guy or that one girl. No one wanted them. They were trouble. They were problems. They had problems other places. And for whatever reason, they ended up with me. You look at yourself like you got a problem, and you do. And sometimes you just want to kick the can down the road. But every one of those employees, as a rule, has become one of, if not the best person I had at that moment. Not their first day, right? We had to work on that. We had to create that culture, and I needed to get their buy-in. And a lot of them just needed something to attach themselves to, some pride. One of my first drivers was related to me by marriage. Lack of a better word, he was a whiny red ass. He was a short man. I didn't want him. He called me because we were basically related. And I was like, man, I don't think so. Ended up being by far one of my best friends and probably the best, if not one of the best drivers I ever had, because he needed our culture and he needed buy-in. He always worked places where it was okay to just bitch and moan the whole time, and he needed us to transition him into something else. I never looked out of a window. I never needed a thing once he bought in, that he wasn't looking at me or providing what we needed at the time, and was a pit bull. He would fight anybody over our crew.
Nice.
So how do you get there? You're a young guy, right? Don't mistake kindness as weakness. Always try to be pretty easygoing. Pick your battles, right? White socks are your thing, then white socks are your thing. But there's probably bigger issues out there. Earn that respect before you demand the respect. But don't let people disrespect you. Always kind of tried to blend, get along, but I don't think there was a day that they didn't know I was the boss. Now, when I was a younger officer and a more junior officer, they seemed like about every 6 months, they would push and push and push to the point of I had to fluff my feathers and show them who the boss was. A funny story, that guy I was just telling you about, right? Little Brian, he weighed about 98 pounds and he was as country as could be. And they'd always laugh because he'd come running into the lounge and say, "Y'all done pissed Clyde off," right? Because that meant the hammer was coming down. So you have to maintain control of these folks, but earning their respect by working with them, learning from them, admitting your mistakes, being humble, being open to suggestion. But if their suggestion is, "Hey, all we do is lay around and watch TV," yeah, no, I'm the boss, because we have public expectation, right? And then when this goes south, not only public expectation, but the expectation of that crew, and more importantly, that crew's family. Everybody's cool with dad laying around watching TV and eating Bluebell all day long until dad gets in a bind and gets hurt or gets killed. Then they want to know why you didn't do something about it. So I never would allow that to occur. We took care of business, because we're in a business that is serious, and you have to learn that, and you create a culture around you. Even as a young guy, you're creating your culture. You'll make mistakes, but
not to interrupt
up to them.
Do you think, you just said something there that kind of struck with me. Do you think we create our own culture sometimes? I mean, as individuals as well?
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, I do. I think you have a fire department culture. You have a station culture, right? So the Houston Fire Department has a certain culture. You go to certain stations in that fire department,
Mm-hmm.
There's a culture. Then me as an officer, I feel like I can teach you a officer school and teach you about NIMS and leadership and all of that stuff all day long, but you have to take all that information and create your own personal culture, because what Clyde did doesn't necessarily work for what Todd does.
Right.
You have your own leadership style and everything else. And I believe you create that culture, then you'll draw people. Anthony came to work for me because he liked the way Chief Gordon did things, right? Or he didn't work for me because he doesn't like Clyde's culture. And that's okay too, because I'd rather you be good somewhere else where you're going to succeed, because maybe with me you won't.
Yeah, I love that, and kind of that same with you though, Kat. Kind of that same exact question I just asked Chief Gordon though, as that up and coming boss, of how to start your influence, and I think I see a lot of cases where younger bosses are almost forcing themselves into that and not allowing it to come. And I love, I like the Misfit Tory reference. I wrote that down. Well, I'm stealing the hell out of that for some
reason.
I don't know where
you remember the cartoon.
Yeah, I do. That's why I wrote it down. I wanted to get a picture and describe it for most of our students. But for you, what were some of the challenges you had as far as, how you're going to influence people without coming in and going, this is what we're going to do, and just being that kind of boss?
I think kind of the first thing is something Clyde said is you do have to establish that you are the boss, especially because it's easy in our environment to get close with people. Like Clyde said, it ends up being one of your best friends. Two of my guys are some of my absolute closest family friends. I mean, our families are close. And it's easy in that situation to let those lines get blurred. And you're the boss. You can't let it get blurred. You can be friends, but when it hits a certain point, that has to be established. They got to know when they're at work, you are the boss, and you will come down on them like anybody else because the standard wasn't met or whatever the situation is. So I think it starts there. You have to establish that you can't let the lines get too blurred and not have it established that you are the boss. And then one of the things that happened to me a couple of years in being an officer was, and it became a joke in the firehouse, was like, we want to see how this plays out because this is the first time you've had somebody that didn't buy in. I always had kind of young guys, and they really wanted to be into the job. They went to a busy company because that's where they wanted to be, and they were just soaking up anything you would give them. So it really didn't matter what, like Clyde said, as an officer, you have your own culture. For them, it really didn't matter. They just wanted someone who was going to do a lot with them, and they were willing to buy in. And then the first time we got somebody that pushed back to some of the senior guys in the firehouse, we were like, now we're going to see. Now we're going to see how you handle this. And it was a learning moment because it had worked one way for everybody, that I could do what I was taught and the way I was taught in that company, and it was accepted and we moved on. And now there was pushback, and you have to be able to find a way to get through to each individual person. They don't all learn the same. Their personalities, their life experiences. Having these young guys, 21 years old, they came in just eager. They just wanted whatever you would give them. Now you get a guy in his 40s who's already done things before the fire department. He's older than you, and he's saying, hold on, and it's not that he pushed back of like, you're not in charge, but there was a lot more just reluctance to just buy into what that company was about and finding a way to get that person to understand. And in that case, we just didn't. I mean, he ended up transferring and it worked out. I mean, later down the road, we're friends now, but he was like, man, I just wasn't at a point to accept what you guys were doing. It was a me thing. You guys were doing great. It worked for all of you. So I just wasn't in the right mix. If I could go back, I would love to go back and get into that. Just at where I was at that point, that wasn't the fit for me. And then there's also being able to accept that. It's not personal. It's professional. Not everyone's going to fit. You got to be able to do certain things. If you got to write somebody up, they could be your friend. That's not personal. We can be friends later, but I got to do this. And like I tell them, you made me do this. I don't like doing this, so you owe me an apology. I'm not, don't think I owe you anything. You should apologize to me for making me do it. But you can't blur those lines, and don't take anything personal. If someone isn't working out and they want to transfer, it's not personal. It's just professional.
No, I agree.
Clyde said, go be successful somewhere else because maybe you won't be here. And maybe that's going to open up a spot for somebody that will be successful here.
I like that. And I think both of you, both the points on that are big. And I think I think we missed the mark when we talk about officer development and officer training. And Chief Gordon even said it. He can come in and teach you how to be an officer. He can teach you NIMS and tactics and strategies. But it's that underlying part of how, I can't teach you unless I can also influence you a little bit, in my opinion, obviously. And if I can influence you, I think I can teach you better. And then we can take, the complexities of a fireground operation and influence you both at that professional level and personal level. I think that's such a bigger impact on our members' lives than here's the book, make sure you do chapters 1 through 4, and here's the test. And unfortunately, a lot of departments are still kind of in that realm when we talk about developing our people. And we don't think about developing our people until like, oh shit, we need 5 lieutenants in the next year, and we have nobody ready to take these positions. And so I'm always interested. I love hearing when guys talk about that. And it was funny. You saw me looking down at my phone a minute ago. Chief Brush just texted me, and one of the guys that works with us at some of the conferences just got promoted to assistant chief. And it's funny that I got this text during this conversation because it made me think of something else of what an influence Brian Brush has been on Caleb in his career in a very short time, and as a monster influence. And it kind of drew me into that circle again. It kind of drew me into your circle has such an influence on each other. I mean, I literally have been sitting in a classroom for 2 days listening to other speakers, and I sat there and said, man, that has an influence. Chief Gordon has such an influence on the way I do certain things now. You to a very small, no, I'm just kidding. You have an influence on how I approach my business. But I think that's a big thing with it. We talk about our inner circles, who we hang out with, and if those influences are positive or negatives. And if it's negative, I'm outing. I'm deuces real quick on that. So those are all really good things. So I'm just going to kind of put you both on the spot here.
And Todd, before you move on, I think what you just said with Brush highlights something that both of you guys said when we first started, and the impact. And if you hear my dog whining, they changed her medicine, and they're trying to get some pain under. She got a mass on the bladder. They're trying to get the pain under control.
Oh my God!
But you guys both emphasized how much pride you took and importance it was to you for someone you trained to promote or to be successful. And Brush is just texting you, bragging on Caleb getting promoted. It means something to them. They're not just filling a role. It's not just, I'm the leader because I got promoted, so I have to teach you this or I have to do this. It's actual mentorship because the person leading you and teaching you truly cares of how you develop and that you become successful. And that's 3 examples. You guys both said at the start, and then Brian's texting you. It's a prime example of if a leader truly cares, they're really mentoring you. And it also shows it's not rank driven. Anyone can mentor somebody. And as long as they truly care and it's genuine that person becomes successful, then that's going to drive that person to success. And that's going to be a big part of leadership in itself.
Yeah. And it kind of goes back to what our main topic is about. Are we making a difference? And sometimes we don't see that. But I think when Chief Brush, can take that step away, I made a huge difference in this firefighter's life who's now an assistant chief. I made a huge difference. One of the other guys on team, Nathan, he just got promoted to captain training on the same job. All within the last week, I've gotten these text messages, and then the one today, which I was really looking forward to hearing from about how he did on the chief's exam. So that was really good. So kind of one of these little hotspot questions for both of you, and we'll put him on the spot first since he's there.
Sure.
He may buy me a beer later if I'm nice to him. So one, I just need you to give us one thing, how to influence a rookie. Brand new rookie.
Again, consistency.
Okay.
Your influence on them is going to be that you're the same person every day. You show up to work and you're not up and down in your emotions. You're leaving stuff at the door. You're coming in and you're being consistent. They can come in and expect the same thing every day from the person leading them, teaching them. And it's not, today we're going to train for 5 hours and tomorrow you can go sit 10 toes up on the couch and, like Clyde said, eat Bluebell. It's going to be consistent every day. Now, it might be 30 minutes today and it's 2 hours the next day because of what you're doing, but they're consistently being taught something. They're consistently being developed, and they know that you're going to be consistent in the way you act. And that was when I was a firefighter, the captain I had, that's what he told me. His biggest thing is he said, I was getting ready to get promoted, and he spent a lot of time in training people once you took the test that you were ready to act captain as a driver, so that you weren't just thrown into it and you weren't ready. And that was his biggest thing, is he said, every day I come in here, I have to be the same person. I can't have my emotions up and down. You guys have to come in and know who's in that front seat. Every day is the same person, going to react the same way, going to do everything the same way.
I love that. And same thing. Give me just one thing, the biggest quality trait, however you want to describe it, into influencing and making a difference for that rookie that comes onto your shift.
I think for me, one of the things was that I had buy-in, right? So whoever you are important to me. And I want to know about you. I want to know about your family. I want to know where you came from. I'm not just here to check a box and go through some minimum standards with you. Like, we need to bring you into the fold and start making you part of the family. You're like the weird brother-in-law that your sister brought to Christmas for the first time, right? We think we might like you, but we really don't know who you are. Now you're family, right? But if you're garbage, then we're going to have to deal with that. So for me, that's what it was. I wanted them to know, like Anthony's saying, I'm very consistent. You may not always like me, but this is what's best for all of us. And they need to understand that, When I taught at the fire academy, one of the things we did towards the end, we had family day. Mm-hmm. It was something I came up with. I said, we spend so much time teaching them how to cut holes and stretch hose and everything, but they don't understand that their family's part of this too. So we did $5 a man, right? We had barbecue. Their families came up, saw what they did. And my intention for that was to start bringing these cadets into the fold so they understood that they're not going to work for the Postal Service. This is something significant and different, and it will be forever.
And for the guys listening, the two things they both said, and if you need to rewind or whatever, buying into them could not be better said, and being consistent every day could not be better said on having that. And I think when you really, kind of look at it deeper, is those are immediate impacts too. I mean, just the mere fact of, and I preach on this all the time, you have to know your guys more than just their skill level. You need to know, who their wife is, how many times they've been married in some cases, how many kids they have, even, that their dog is, in the background howling out of pain because, the dog's parents aren't.
His dad won't give him his medicine.
He got her medicine before we started.
But I would make that recommend, in both your personal and your professional lives, in your circle, knowing people at that personal level. I think it just means that connection you have. If you have a connection with a person, you're going to influence that person as well, because you're going to know, kind of sometimes, especially with firemen, everybody's got that different button. And if you can just find those right buttons to push with the new guy, you're going to have that guy for a career, not just for, until he gets out of there. But the good guys, you have them now for a career. And you can make that influence throughout, even if they don't work for you. Like Chief Gordon said, I had guys that left me or got promoted away from me, but they would still contact me, especially when they ran into issues with stuff as they started moving through the ranks. So I think that's one of those, again, those influences that you have that you don't always get a chance to take a deeper look at. So I absolutely love that. And I want to circle back just on one thing. And I think Chief Gordon hit it, but I want to hit it one more time. And I kind of read between the lines here is not giving up on somebody when he was talking about, his initial go. And I think we do that we get flustered with guys. Sure, you feel like you have poured every ounce of your energy into this guy, and the dude still can't tie his goddamn shoes. And we give up on him. But I think the way he was describing that, it really resonated with me about some guys are just different. And it takes more than do it my way or, and one of the things I tell guys or make a recommendation for anybody listening, maybe it's the way I'm messaging it, and maybe it may come better if I have Chief Gordon give the guys maybe the same exact message, but he'll relate better to Chief Gordon. I'm not giving up on him. I'm trying to help him more by doing that. It'd be the same thing, I think, in your house. You may not resonate with me, but maybe Rico or one of the other guys would resonate with me. It's the same message, just a different sender sometimes can make a huge difference. Any feedback on that? Now, I love the not giving up thing about, how we're making difference for people. I thought that was probably a bigger point than we realized.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many guys I've had come through, work with me and everything else. And there's probably been a handful that we just either I didn't connect, but someone else did. But there were people that, man, they just didn't get it. They just did not fit into our island. And that's okay. It didn't make them a bad person, right? We're lucky enough to work in a big department. They had places they could go. And it's interesting to see a guy I thought that never would be able to do it. Now he's a rock star. And I think sometimes just the environment or the guys there's just so much pressure on them. They don't do well. But yeah, I think everybody has a place here. Some people are better at it than others. Don't get me wrong, but you really need to put the effort in and put your time into them and try to commit to them because it's your responsibility.
Yeah.
And,
100%.
And don't just paint with a big paintbrush. Like I said, I got lots and lots of guys who had paper on them when they got to me. And then, of course, what do? Hey, somebody's going to call and say, hey, man, that guy, that Bob, man, he's a piece of crap. And, you know what I mean? So if you allow that to taint your opinion of him, you're not doing the right job, right? You're not being a boss because he's already coming in with strikes against him because you decided. Now, I'll set them down and say, hey, look, I know your past. I know your history. Of course, people have told me. For me, you have a clean slate. We're starting out even ground. This is your opportunity to either succeed or fail, right? Don't disappoint me. I'm not going to disappoint you. I'm going to do everything I can for you. Now you have an opportunity to do well. And 99% of the time, those guys excelled. There are those few, though. Some people just need to be fired. I ain't going to lie to you. Some people just they need to go work for the Postal Service. Sorry to all my postmen out there.
I think he's exactly right. But, again, just that circle back of if we do sometimes give up on people maybe a little earlier than we should, both personally and professionally. I drive my wife nuts because she calls me Switzerland. I'm always looking for the good in everybody. The glass is always half full with everything, Hey, the house has collapsed, but we're alive. Glass half full, right. Just my personality in general. So, but I know in the past I have walked away from guys and went, what in the hell? And, I look back and go, I probably should have gave that guy a little bit more of myself. So kind of building on that for the, to have that influence on your personnel and the members or the guys. Maybe you only work with the guy every so often, depending on the size of your job. your impact's probably greater than you realize, especially if you're a senior boss or a senior man on your fire department. That's a monster difference you're making. You don't always see that. So stick with what Captain Rowett just said about consistency, what Chief Gordon said about, not giving up too soon, and, a little bit of patience can go a long way. I know it's the hardest thing sometimes to have patience, but a little bit of patience can go a long way in helping somebody and maybe making them better than when they came to you. So one of the impacts, and I'm really going to give this to Chief Gordon, because I thought it's one of the coolest things in the world to me, that we don't always see our impact on the fire ground. We don't always see our impact on emergency scenes. And I love using this example. We'll go to, you can go to 10 vacant structures a year, or 10 vacant structures in a week. It's a blurb on the news, if it even makes the news. It's forgotten about in 5 seconds. And we have no idea if the only thing we cared about, hey, we made a job and we had a good time. That's where it kind of starts and ends at that for us. So I kind of use the example, and everybody groans when you say it in a classroom, about the lift assist calls, that they always happen after midnight. It's always, we got to walk up 10 flights of stairs. It's always some dramatic thing. Of course, that's how firemen describe everything. But I always I get guys to kind of understand this. 80-year-old man who can't lift his wife up off the floor at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then we show up. And we've bitched, moaned, cried, and complained all the way to that scene. And we still do our job, and we, cry and complain all the way back sometimes too. But if you'll just kind of pause every now and then and take that step back and say what impact you just had, not just on the lady you helped up off the floor, but the impact you just had on that man and his life, that you were polite, courteous, gentle with his wife, making sure she was well taken care of. You're there for a grand total of 6 minutes out of that entire shift. But the impact we have on those routine calls, and lift assists are routine calls. Those impacts we have when somebody can't figure out, the old lady who can't figure out why her smoke alarm's going off. When we go in, we replace the batteries, and it's at, again, 2 o'clock in the morning, or we've been running up and down the street all day. If we're going to influence not just our personnel, the influence we actually have on our public is a lot greater sometimes than I think we realize. And, helping that elderly person off the floor, or taking a beat to help, we stopped we were at a store one day, and this woman's got a cane and, 800 grocery bags, and it's 40 below zero out. And I just watched people walking by her, and, we were just getting ready to pull in. So we stopped by her and we got out and helped her load her groceries. That's an impact. It's not a medal. You're not going to medal day and getting the, medal of grocery loading, but you're having such an impact on your community. And it's a very, very small thing. Obviously, when you have the rescues and the grabs, when we save 5 kids and all that, those are great moments. Those are newsworthy moments. Those are magazine article moments. But what about the other thousands of moments that we really do? And we spend more time on those type of moments than we'll ever on any kind of major working fire with 5 rescues. Tell me, I'm going to start with Anthony here on this real quick. One of those smaller moments, not a fire. And if you say the word fire, you're out. And if it's on a standpipe, you're out. We're cutting off your mic. One of those small impact moments you probably made on somebody in your community.
Well, I'm going to say it was actually after a fire the other day. So she was in the street crying because the house burned up, right? 2 rooms completely torched in the house. And, so out there crying. We got a good chief. He's always involved in the community doing things. And he's like, man, is everything done? Can she go in there? She's trying to get her medicine. And we're like, yeah, no problem. First thing we said, hey, it's dark. Let us grab some lights. We'll walk you through it. We start getting her medicine out. And at this point, still, crying, the devil, all this kind of stuff. And she says, I have a daughter with special needs in a wheelchair. I just stocked up on her supplies. Is that her room that burned? And we were like, well, which one? And when she told us, we were like, man, I'm sorry. Everything in that room is gone. She said, I just bought a ton of box of diapers. Is there any way it survived? And we were like, everything in that room is gone. She said, we went and checked, and we were thinking we were just going to walk in there and, it's gone. I mean, everything when we overhauled that room was gone. And in the bottom of the closet was this box she had them in, and they weren't touched. They were completely like from the store. And we carried out those just cases of diapers. And she went from crying and the devil to praise Jesus. I know God's going to bless me. And the whole day's attitude about that fire changed. It was just, that's material now. I got the stuff I needed for my daughter. And it was just that little bit of time before you leave to just walk in and help her get her stuff. Bring in the flashlights for her. Change the entire way that fire, that day went for her.
And I think that, and it doesn't just speak, I mean, obviously you're influencing and having because we see so many, just horrible, horrific things at times, but, being able to share that little story right there, that impact, because she's sharing that impact story. She's going to tell one of her friends or a family member how the firemen went back in and they found all these, diapers for adults especially are not cheap. So all those type of things, such a small gesture in all reality, small on our part and a monster impact. And again, go back to those lift assists. What an impact. Hey, the man calls his son the next day. Hey, the fireman had to come get mom up off the floor. And they were awesome. And they did this and they did that. And they checked her blood pressure. Well, now the son's going to tell his buddies and friends about how the Atlanta Fire Department did this, or the Mobile or the Houston Fire Department did this for their, 78, 90-year-old mother. Those are huge influences we have. And I think we need to spend more time celebrating those small ones, not with awards and stuff, but just, sharing those small little impacts is really a big deal. Chief Gordon, and give us and if you've never heard his story and the influence they had on an individual, and then you told me today about the upcoming news for him, and for people who've never heard about Rodney, because I think that all the impacts on a community or impacts on an individual who's not in the fire service, he's not a fireman, but the impact and the trickle-down impact to his family as well. And for this individual, by just firemen being firemen. In all reality, to me, this is just firemen being firemen in a lot of ways, just at a whole other level in a sense. So, just kind of not the whole version, but give us a good overview. And I want to really cap that off with as much as you want to share about where he's at today. I won't stop. I'm going to stop crowds coming this way because they're about to break, but go ahead, Chief.
Yeah. Well, if you hadn't heard the story, and, I wasn't always this guy, right? I didn't get it. I wanted to go to fires. That's why I joined the fire department. I wanted the excitement of the fires. Somewhere in there, through my life and seeing other people's tragedies and stuff, it started to really switch in my brain that we have such an impact on people. I love to go to fires, but the fires is the 5 or 10 minute fun part. But what is the impact on people? How did the fire impact your lady and her diapers and her special needs? And then how did you impact her? So anyway, like every other fire station, Rodney was a young man who came around. He needed air in his bicycle tire, and he needed 50 cents for a Coke. And he was a kid from the neighborhood, and he just started coming around. And for whatever reason, he made some friends at the fire station. One, Kevin Story was one of the first ones, Mo Davis, he was just a kid in the neighborhood. And like a lot of these kids, they moved from neighborhood to neighborhood to neighborhood for whatever reason. They were paying rent in one place, and then they had to get out and have to move. So he was always in low-income areas. He got hung around those fire stations in those low-income areas. If you've worked in those areas, you become part of the fabric of the community. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. But for whatever reason, Rodney was a little different. He was about 8 years old. Firemen started to kind of take him into their fold. I think because more than anything, he was consistent. He was there all the time. So if he's going to show up all the time, we need to start talking to him and figure out what he's doing and where he's coming from. So they did. They started teaching him, if you're going to hang around here all day long, you're going to learn how to sweep, and you're going to learn what's on the apparatus because we're checking it. You learn how to check it. We're teaching hydraulics. You learn hydraulics. And Rodney, I think to Rodney, it was kind of a cool place and a safe place. He could manipulate the guys there to get what he wanted. That was a lot of it, too. He wanted a pair of boxing gloves. He'd find somebody to con into to get him a pair of boxing gloves or new shoes. The guys wanted him to do well, so they would help him with homework and that type of thing. Try to get him to go to school, fuss at him like a bunch of dads would when he didn't go to school. He didn't have any kind of real positive influence on his family side. So the firemen became his family. When he was about 11 is when I met him. Rodney knew that knowing firefighters was pretty cool, but if you knew the captain, that was better because he could get more for you. And if you knew the chief, that was even better. So he and I started to become friends, and he started to hang around my fire station. The guys in the district told me about him and who he was. And when he was 11, he was pretty, he had been around for several years. So he was part of the fabric. And he was telling me, hey, it's my birthday on Wednesday and you guys work Wednesday. And I was like, yeah, I know we work Wednesday. I'm not an idiot. I know what he's getting at. He wants some gifts. Okay. And Rodney comes from a family that their profession was slinging dope and busting your window out of your car and stealing your computer. And that was the influences he had there. He knew it was wrong, but he didn't know how to get out of it. When he'd hang out with the firemen, he'd do pretty good. Then he'd go hang out with certain members of his family, and he'd be involved in some of that activity. And the guys would fuss at him when they found out what he was up to, and he'd get his feelings hurt and disappear for 2 or 3 weeks, and then he'd end up coming back. So anyway, long story short, he was around 11. It was his birthday. We didn't know how to make a cake. So I asked my wife to come and make him a cake. And so she did, and that was the first time she had met him. But like women do and like mamas do, we knew if Rodney went to school or whatever, but that was about it. We knew he knew how to sweep floors and be a guy around the station. But when he had left, he was like, do you know he has 8 brothers and sisters? Do you know he's basically homeless? Do you know his family are felons? Do you know he doesn't eat sometimes? And none of us knew that because he wouldn't tell us. And but she treated him like a mother would, and she started talking to him. And I was like floored at how she knew all that in an hour. But she had talked to him, and he had opened up to her. Well, we didn't realize more than anything that Rodney needed the love of a mother that was lacking in his life. And that family connection is lacking in a lot of these kids' lives that we see every single day in the neighborhoods. They don't have dads at home. Some of them, their mother doesn't accept who they are, doesn't take care of them, or they're raised by someone else. And these kids need that influence of family. The firemen were being the dad side, but we just like to discipline, right? We fuss at you when you do bad. We didn't know what else he needed. So he needed the love of a mother, and she started to take that place. So from the time he was 11, she made me buy him cell phones and everything else, but she spoke to him every single day since then. It changed his life. That connection changed his life. And it didn't happen overnight. Over the years, he would try to do better. He would get in trouble. He went to juvie. He had issues. But we were consistently there, just like you talked about, Anthony. We were always there. And we always cared for him. We loved on him and were kind to him and gave him a safe place to land when he came back. When he was 17, he was trying to finish school, trying to get his high school diploma. He was having a hard time. We had talked many times about the consequences of his actions were much more severe now that he's close to being an adult as opposed to a 9 or 10-year-old kid. And he had always had the opportunity to come live with us, but we lived way out in the country. And it's just an urban young man. So it was a significant change for him. But he had been held up at gunpoint twice that week. He figured he was going to die there in the streets because several of his relatives had already. And he decided to move in with us. And it was a significant change for all of us. But over the months, it was a very positive thing for all of us. And then he decided that college, he just didn't think he could commit to college, and he wanted to go to the military. So when he was 18, he joined the United States Marine Corps. And we weren't, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't real sure he'd make it. But now he's 20. He's in Okinawa, Japan. He's a machine gunner in the United States Marine Corps. He just contacted us this morning, and he should be promoted again in March. He's going to college. He is, calls me about what stocks I need to buy. And to think where he was just a very short few years ago, you're looking at 24 months, he was on his way to prison or to the funeral home more than likely. And now here he is completely different. And it wasn't because of what Clyde did or Melinda did. It was because firemen cared. And you can't adopt every kid out there, but you have no idea the direction and the change you can make in someone's life. A kid like that, just being kind to them. A lot of them don't have a lot of kindness or any type of real positive influence in their life. And for it to come from someone who has authority in their eyes, who maybe looks or acts different or sounds different than them, can have a huge, huge impact. And you'll be amazed what kind of blessing it is to you. I mean, your wife might start listening to Little Dirk and wearing Nikes and all that, but hey, whatever, it's a culture thing.
I'm glad that we were able to do that on this and have this, hopefully a greater outreach to people who may have never heard that story. And as I was, and I told Chief Gordon this morning, last night when I said, hey, can you kind of be on the podcast thing today? Surprise. It was because of that influence. And I love the way you capped that off with is what firefighters did for this one individual. And I think the long term, though, is now how is Rodney years down the road going to influence others? And I think that's that kind of that, circle of life type of thing sometimes you look at, but just that little bit of kindness by the Houston firemen to put up with this little kid, and we've all had those kids come to our station like, oh my God, he's back again. But they didn't give up. And it kind of goes back to that very first thing about not giving up on somebody. And if Chief Gordon and the other guys that he was coming to see all the time would just shoot him away and gave up on him, more likely Rodney's either in prison or he's dead today. And instead of, living it up, not living it up, but, living in Japan right now and learning all these new cultures and all these new things that I guaranteed just a few years ago, there's no way this kid would ever thought that he'd be in Japan. Yeah. So I think that it's so cool. And I think that's one of those things about the fire service. And I think we forget about these things sometimes of our influence on the people we serve, the influence we have on the people that we work side by side with every day. And what we do matters. And I truly, truly believe more so now, being retired from the job and being exposed to so many fire departments and traveling, of the influence and the impacts that we all have on each other. And, both negative and positive in some cases. But I think that is such the outreach that we're having that if, we change one new lieutenant's mind about how he's doing training or one lieutenant's mind on how he's operating at the fire ground, then that guy is going to see his success and then he's going to influence the next guy and the next guy. And we have that domino effect. And same thing in our communities. If we get all our firefighters on our rig to, just, something as simple as what Chief Gordon said, just being nice to somebody for 7 minutes at 2:00 in the morning, what a monster impact that could truly be on somebody's life long term, and the impact they may have on others. And it'll be really interesting to see Corporal Rodney, and and maybe he'll promote up again. And I know Melinda and Chief Gordon are more than proud, and they've got to be just ridiculously excited to see what that kid's going to do next. And it was all out of one little simple interaction in a lot of ways. It's how all that started. So we don't know. We don't know from day to day who we're going to have influence on in this line of work. And, again, a little bit off our topic that we typically do. And I thought it was something I was excited about doing this time, and kind of reaching into something a little bit different than your standard podcast about we go in the door and we slay the dragon and we do this shit. And so I kind of like this too, to be able to bring a little bit of different avenue. I'm going to do a wrap here, and this is how we're going to do the wrap. A little bit different, not totally different, but a little bit different, I guess. For Anthony, tell me, and you may not have thought about this, so I was going to kind of put you both on the spot. It's really going to put you on the spot because you're getting the question first. What do you want your legacy to be? When you're done teaching, you've retired from Mobile Fire Rescue, nobody will hire you again, all that good stuff. What do you want your legacy to be?
Just that I did the right thing. That it wasn't always necessarily what you wanted to do or the fun thing, but you did the right thing. You put the fire department first and the people first. And if I can be remembered for that, then I'm good with it. The people I look up to that they retired, and they're the ones that you just look to, and it's like, I treasure every fire I went to those guys and every shift I worked with them. They just did the right thing. They were really good firemen, but at the end of the day, they were just genuine people that did the right thing. A lot of them came, their dads were on the fire department, and they just did things the way their dad did when it was nothing else really mattered, but you were serving the community and doing the right thing for people. And we look up to those guys, and their names still live in our firehouses every day because they did the right thing, and that's what they're remembered for. And I think if you do that, everything else comes together. If you do the right thing, you're doing the right thing in everything. So you're going to be good at the job because you're taking the time to know your area, know your buildings, know your water, all that kind of stuff, know your streets. And if you're doing the right thing, you're putting time into people and you're developing them. So to me, if you can just be remembered that, man, he always did the right thing, then that's enough.
I love that. Absolutely love that answer. Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, I agree 100% with Anthony, and I'm basically going to say the same thing and probably paint it a little differently. But, I'd like for the guys that always work with me, Chief taught me how to put people first, right? Because we're in the people business. It's not always pleasant. It can be a pain in the neck, but, you're not the last one out of the house if you're placing people first, right? You start looking at everything we do, like, what would I want the fireman to do for my wife, for my kid, for my this, right? It changes everything. When you show up at 4 a.m. and you're so frustrated and so exhausted, and it's just a friggin' water leak, but you're like, what if this was my grandma, right? And you go fix her little water leak and you move on. Guess what, man? That was a huge impact. And when we get out of our own way, the guys I see that don't do well, who don't like the job, they're very self-centered, right? It's all about me. I'm losing my sleep. Well, guess what? Get over it, because you're not going to sleep until you retire. This is the only time I've slept in my life, right? So placing people first. Chief Gordon taught me how to place people first. Every decision I made had to do with how it affected others. Man, you'll be amazed at how awesome this job can be. The fires are great, but we know that's only about 2% of what we do. If you can find some joy in the other 98%, it's still an awesome, awesome job.
100%, man. So both of you are so spot on. And as I was listening, and I actually gave, because I already knew what I was going to ask, so I have the advantage of having a 4-minute, kind of an answer in my head. But I kept going back and forth, and both your answers are exactly where I was kind of at. But if I stopped everything and just, locked down in my house for until death or whatever, it would be that people would remember, and my legacy would be that I actually gave a shit. I really do truly care about, the people that I work with, the people I have worked with, the people I'm currently working with, and everybody that I have the privilege. And I say to a lot of my classes that, I'm blessed and I'm privileged to do what I get to do now. And I mean that wholeheartedly. It is so humbling to have a room of 5 guys or 150 guys staring back at you. I like the challenge and the responsibility. But if they leave the room knowing that, I'm not up there to, talk about me, that I actually give a shit about their futures and their careers and their fire departments, that would be, to me, the best legacy I could ever leave behind, for a person. And it's a little selfish and personal, but I want my students, I want my firefighters to know that I truly care. I truly give a shit about them and their next fire and their next call. And I think that's probably speaks true of all of us that are, that do a lot of instructing and teaching. That if you're not going out there for them in that sense and you're trying to make them better, you have no business out here teaching anybody. You don't have any business teaching on your fire department if you just want to stand in front of your guys and beat on your chest and tell everybody how great you are. It's not about you. I actually, one of the guys called me on it yesterday, not a bad way, but at the second break, I had a 4-hour block yesterday. At the second break, he basically said, who are you? I forgot to introduce myself because I'm so into, all right, this is how we're going to do this, like this. So I'm presenting again tomorrow. So I put in my introduction slide again because I didn't have it in. If I don't have it in there, I just don't even think about it because I'm not worried about me. But they do kind of need to know, hey, this guy isn't, like a rookie, some old rookie that showed up and started teaching a class too. So they know, just need to know a little bit. We'll let you close out here. Final thoughts for the day, Captain Rowett.
Mine would just be the thing I've said a few times now would be consistency. If you're consistent in everything you do, it all translates. So it's going to help you. It's going to help everybody that works with you, which is going to in turn help who we're running on. So be consistent in everything you do and it'll all work out.
Love it. Love it. Chief Gordon.
Yeah, I think just be open, right? Have your mind and your heart open for opportunities to make a difference. You don't have to save 47 kids from an orphanage. You don't have to adopt a kid from the neighborhood. Just simply being good to people, right? Just look for that opportunity because there'll be plenty of opportunities to bitch, moan, and complain. Look, change that. Make an opportunity. Look for the opportunity to make a difference. And man, you'll be amazed how it changes everything.
And it's a benefit to us too.
Without a doubt.
Your mental health, the way you feel about the job changes differently at the same time. And I've worked with some unbelievable firemen over my career, but they were not happy firemen though.
Right. That's right. They're miserable. Right?
I don't know how they live that way. Yeah. Yes, not everything's going to be rainbows and unicorns and sunshine and. There's going to be those difficult moments, but
even if you're nice to somebody when you drive away, you can gripe all you want, but you still did the right thing, right, Anthony?
Yeah, because you got to look at yourself in the mirror the next morning.
That's right.
Now you may get in the car and go, "What an asshole!"
Yeah,
but and there's moments like that too. So, I think kind of going back to what I said as far as like legacy and stuff, man. I don't look for opportunities to make a difference. I'm just doing what I think is best. And I'm always looking for the positives and the good and in the job we do and the work we do, both at the field operations level all the way to the training officer level. Those pride moments of getting a text message from a friend about another friend who just got promoted. Those are great moments in my eyes. And I think that if we took that approach and we did a better job overall in the American Fire Service of building each other up a little bit more instead of tearing each other down. It's already the greatest job in the world. It could be even greater if we did a little bit more of that. So that is it for me. Chief, thank you. I know I kind of kidnapped him today for this. But I bribed him. I bought him breakfast this morning, so he kind of owed me. But we appreciate your time. I've got to get Chief Gordon cut loose because he's got to go teach a little bit earlier than we thought you were going to teach. But I'll tell you all about that. And that's going to be it for this week or this month. And we'll be ready to roll again in a few weeks.
Firefighters know that every second counts during the golden hour. That is why first responders trust AMKUS for simple, rugged, reliable rescue tools.